If you're building AI-powered apps, you've probably felt the sting of API bills. A few million tokens here, a few there, and suddenly you're spending hundreds of dollars a month on keys. But here's the thing. You might already be paying for a Claude, Gemini, or ChatGPT subscription. In this video, I'll show you how to use those subscriptions as your API backend through Hermes Agent. 0 per token billing, same powerful models. Let's talk numbers. Claude Opus 4 costs $15 per million input tokens on the API. GPT-4o runs about $10. Gemini 2.5 Pro is $7. If you're running 1,000 requests a day with medium-length prompts, you're easily hitting $300 to $500 a month per model. Now compare that to a flat $20 a month for Claude Pro, $20 for ChatGPT Plus, $20 for Google One AI Premium. That's $60 total for access to all three. The math is pretty clear. So how do you actually use your subscription like an API? That's where Hermes Agent comes in. Hermes sits between your application and the AI providers. Your app talks to Hermes using the standard OpenAI SDK. Nothing changes on your end. Hermes then authenticates to Claude, Gemini, or OpenAI using OAuth tokens from your subscription account, not an API key. It exposes a local REST API on port 4000, and your code just points its base URL there. It also pulls multiple credentials and rotates them automatically when you hit rate limits. Here's the full picture. At the top, you have your subscription accounts, Claude Pro or Max, Google One AI Premium for Gemini, and ChatGPT Plus or Pro for OpenAI. All three feed into Hermes Agent's credential pool. Hermes handles the adapter layer, translating between OpenAI's chat completions format and each provider's native API format. At the bottom, any tool that speaks OpenAI, the Python SDK, Cursor, Aider, Claude Code, connects to Hermes on localhost 4000. Change one line of code, get 3 providers. Let's start with Claude. There are 2 ways to authenticate. Method A is the easiest. If you already have Claude Code installed and you've logged into it, Hermes automatically reads those OAuth tokens from the credentials file at //claude/.credentials.json. You don't have to do anything. Method B is running your own PKCE OAuth flow directly through Hermes. One command, Hermes auth at Anthropic --type OAuth, opens a browser. You log in with your Anthropic account, and the token is saved to the credential pool. Either way, you're authenticated in under a minute. What's actually happening when Hermes uses your Claude subscription? It reads the access token and refresh token from your Claude Code credentials file. These are single-use refresh tokens, and Hermes syncs them atomically so that Claude Code and Hermes never step on each other. Hermes detects the token type by its prefix. CC star tokens are Claude Code OAuth bearer tokens, EYJ tokens are JWTs, and SKAntAPI tokens are the legacy API key format. For OAuth tokens, Hermes automatically adds the required beta headers, Claude Code 20,250,219, and auth the 20th of April, 2025, plus the Claude CLI user agent. This is what tells Anthropic servers to route the request through your subscription tier rather than billing an API account. For Gemini, the key is Google One AI Premium, $20 a month, which also gets you 2 terabytes of drive storage and Gemini in Workspace. What matters for us is that this subscription unlocks access to the Claude Code Assist API. This is a different endpoint from the public Google AI Studio API. It's the backend that the Gemini CLI itself uses. Hermes has a dedicated adapter called Gemini_CloudCode_adapter that handles the schema translation transparently. Your app sends standard OpenAI messages. Hermes converts them to Gemini's native format, sends them to the Claude Code Assist endpoint with your OAuth bearer token, and streams the response back. Setting up Gemini is 3 steps. First, make sure you have a Google One AI Premium subscription active. Second, run Hermes auth add Google-Gemini CLI. This opens a browser window where you authenticate with your Google account using a PKCE OAuth flow. Third, in your code, just use Gemini 2.5 Pro or Gemini 2.5 Flash as the model name. Hermes routes it to the Cloud Code Assist backend automatically. One caveat worth knowing: Google's terms of service note that using Gemini CLI OAuth credentials with third-party applications may not be officially supported. So use this with that understanding. For OpenAI, Hermes uses what's called Codex OAuth, the same authentication mechanism as OpenAI's Codex CLI. ChatGPT Plus, at $20 a month, gives you access to GPT-4o, GPT 4.5, and o3 Mini. ChatGPT Pro at $200 a month adds GPT 5.5, OpenAI's latest reasoning model, plus higher rate limits and O1 Pro mode. One particularly nice feature here: Hermes uses live model discovery. Instead of a hard-coded model catalog, it fetches the available models dynamically from the Codex endpoint. So when OpenAI releases a new model, it shows up in Hermes automatically, without waiting for a software update. Here's how the OpenAI authentication actually flows. When you run Hermes Auth add open-codex, Hermes starts a device code OAuth flow. Your terminal shows a short code. You visit a URL in your browser and confirm it, and OpenAI issues tokens back to Hermes. Those tokens go into ~hermes/auth.json, completely separate from the Codex CLI's own credentials file. They coexist safely. One important detail: Codex uses single-use refresh tokens. Every time a token is refreshed, a new refresh token is issued. Hermes handles this atomically to prevent token reuse errors under concurrent requests. On the API side, Hermes translates your standard chat completions calls to OpenAI's responses API format that the Codex endpoint expects. Here's the complete setup sequence for all three providers. For Claude, run Hermes Auth add Anthropic-type OAuth. For Gemini, run Hermes Auth add Google-Gemini TLI. For OpenAI Codex, run Hermes Auth add OpenAI-Codex. Each command opens the appropriate auth flow browser for Claude and Gemini, device code for OpenAI. When you're done, run Hermes Auth list and you'll see all three credentials listed as healthy. From that point on, Hermes manages the tokens, refreshing them when they expire, rotating to the next credential when one hits a rate limit, and logging everything for you to inspect. The credential pool is where Hermes really shines. For each provider, you can add multiple subscription accounts. Maybe you have 2 Claude Pro accounts, or you're sharing across a small team. Hermes tracks the health of every credential, whether it's currently healthy, exhausted from rate limiting, or in a cooldown period. When a credential gets rate limited, Hermes automatically moves to the next one in the pool. When the cooldown expires, it comes back into rotation. From your application's perspective, none of this is visible. Requests just keep flowing. You control how Hermes picks from the pool using strategies configured per provider in your config.yaml file. Fill first is the default. It uses your primary credential until it's exhausted, then overflows to the next. Great for a single main subscription with a backup. Round-robin cycles through credentials evenly, which is ideal when you have multiple subscriptions of the same tier and want to maximize the combined rate limit ceiling. Least used always picks whichever credential has handled the fewest requests, self-balancing without configuration. And random is simple stochastic selection, which works well for parallel worker pools. Each provider can have a different strategy. Using Hermes from Python is genuinely a one-line change. Import the OpenAI client as normal, but set base_URL to http://localhost:4000. The API_key field is required by the SDK, but Hermes ignores it. Just pass a placeholder string. After that, everything works exactly as you'd expect. Pass Claude Opus 4.5 as the model to use your Claude subscription. Switch to Gemini 2.5 Pro for Gemini. Use GPT-4o for OpenAI Codex. Streaming works. Just add stream equals true, and Hermes passes the chunks through. Function calling works. System prompts work. The interface is identical to the real OpenAI API. You're not limited to Python. Claude Code users can set the Anthropic _base _URL environment variable to point at Hermes. Now Claude Code's agent loop runs through your subscription credentials. You can also use the Hermes CLI directly with Hermes Chat, specifying any model from any provider. For tools like Aider, pass --open API base with the Hermes URL and your chosen model string. Aider doesn't need to know anything about the underlying provider. Any tool that respects the OpenAI _base _URL environment variable will work out of the box. The ecosystem compatibility is broad because Hermes speaks the universal OpenAI dialect. Let's make the savings concrete. Imagine you're sending 1 million tokens per day of input, which is moderate for an agentic workflow. With API keys, Claude Opus 4 alone runs about $450 a month. Gemini 2.5 Pro is around $210. GPT-4o is around $300. Combined, you're looking at nearly $1,000 a month just in API costs. With subscriptions through Hermes, $60 total for all three, $20 each. That's roughly a 93% cost reduction. And you're getting the same frontier models. The subscription usage limits do exist, but for most personal and small team workloads, they're rarely the bottleneck. Hermes handles the messy reality of rate limits and auth failures, so your app doesn't have to. A 429 rate limit response gets retried once on the same credential. If it hits again, Hermes rotates to the next credential in the pool and puts the exhausted one in a 1-hour cooldown. A 402 billing or quota error means the subscription's limit is hit. Hermes immediately rotates with a 24-hour cooldown before retesting. A 401 auth expired error triggers a token refresh attempt first. Only if the refresh itself fails does Hermes rotate to the next credential. In every case, your application code never sees these errors. Hermes surfaces a clean response, or, if the entire pool is exhausted, a clear error that tells you exactly what happened. There's a fourth option worth mentioning, Alibaba's Qwen. The Qwen 3235 billion parameter model is one of the top open-weight reasoning models available, and it has a generous free tier through the Qwen CLI. Hermes integrates with it by reading the Qwen CLI's own credential file directly from /.qwen/OAuthCreds.json. There's no separate token to manage. You first authenticate through the Qwen CLI with Qwen OAuth, then tell Hermes to pick it up with Hermes Auth, add Qwen OAuth. After that, just use the model name Qwen 3 to 235 BA22B in your requests. Same interface, potentially zero cost. A few things to keep in mind before you go all in. On the terms of service side, subscription plans have usage limits designed for individual use. Check whether high-volume automation falls within your plan's intended use. Gemini CLI OAuth with third-party apps is explicitly flagged by Google as potentially outside their TOS. And subscription credentials are generally for personal or developer use, not for building products that serve other paying users. That path requires an API agreement. On the practical side, run Hermes Auth list regularly to verify credentials are healthy. Mix a subscription credential and an API key fallback in the same pool if you need production reliability. And use Hermes Auth reset when you want to clear a credential's cooldown state after its timeout. To recap, Hermes Agent lets you use your existing AI subscriptions as a local API. No per-token billing, no API keys required. One command to add each provider. Claude, via Hermes Auth, add Anthropic. Gemini, via Hermes Auth, add Google-Gemini CLI. OpenAI, via Hermes Auth, add OpenAI Codex. The credential pool handles rotation, cooldowns, and failover automatically. Your application just points its OpenAI SDK base _URL at localhost 4000 and everything works. For personal projects and small teams, this can cut your AI infrastructure costs by 90% or more. Give it a try, and if you want to dig deeper, the Hermes docs cover the full credential pool configuration. Thanks for watching.